Jay, you know that feeling when a plan is so small and so simple that nothing could possibly go wrong? $400. One dinner. Pretend to be my best friend's girlfriend for a few hours, collect the cash, go home. That was the whole plan. What actually happened involved a wedding date I never agreed to, a crying ex-fiancée in a red coat, a 75-year-old grandmother with the instincts of a hostage negotiator, and a job offer that changed my entire life, all before the cake was finished. This is the story of the worst planned, best-paying lie I've ever told. Jake Delacroix offered me $400 to be his girlfriend for one dinner, and I said yes before he finished the sentence, because I am not a complicated person. My landlord had raised my rent by $200 a month due to market conditions, which is landlord for because I can, and I had exactly one skill that translated into fast cash. I had been Jake's best friend since freshman year of college, which meant I knew enough about his family to fake my way through anything short of a DNA test. $400, I repeated, mostly to make him say it again, because it felt like the kind of number you wanted witnesses to. $400, plus the meal, plus I'll drive. He was pacing his kitchen in that specific way he paced when he was rehearsing a lie in his head before he told it to me, which meant there was more to this than he'd said in the text. It's just dinner. My grandmother's 75th birthday. The whole family's flying in. And you need a girlfriend for this because my mother has started sending me profiles. Profiles. Like a catalog. Like I'm supposed to pick a wife out of a catalog the way you pick a couch. He stopped pacing and looked at me with the specific desperation of a man who has run out of better ideas. Maddie. I need one dinner where nobody asks me why I'm still single. That's it. One dinner, one fake relationship, and then you get to go back to being appalled by my life choices from a safe distance, like usual. I should have asked more questions. This is, in retrospect, the theme of the entire evening. I should have asked more questions, and I did not, because $400 is $400 and I had already mentally spent it on rent, on the good coffee, and on a slightly less good bottle of wine to drink while regretting my decisions. What's the story? I asked instead. How long have we been together? Where'd we meet? Do I have to pretend I like your taste in movies? 8 months. We met at Renata's birthday party, the one where you fell into the pool. I was pushed. Nobody's going to fact-check the pool logistics, Maddie. Fine. 8 months. What else? That's it. That's the whole plan. I wanted on the record that this was, structurally, a terrible plan, built by a man whose entire strategic philosophy was it'll be fine, probably, and that I agreed to it anyway, at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, over reheated pad thai, because I liked him too much to say no and needed the money too badly to think it through. By Saturday I owned a plan with exactly 2 facts in it and a debt of $400 I hadn't been paid yet. This felt, even then, like walking into a card game where I only knew 2 cards in the deck. I did not yet know how large the rest of the deck was. The Delacroix family did not live in a house so much as they occupied a small geological formation with a driveway. It sat at the end of a private road lined with trees old enough to have their own zip code, and by the time Jake pulled up behind a line of cars that looked like a luxury dealership having a slow day, I had started to understand that my grandmother's 75th birthday was not, structurally, a small dinner. You said dinner, I said. This looks like a summit. It's a dinner. There's just a lot of us. How many is a lot? 22, maybe 25 if my Aunt Priya brings the new husband. I turned in my seat and looked at him properly for the first time since we'd left. He'd worn an actual blazer. Jake, who I had personally witnessed attend a job interview in a hoodie with a coffee stain on it, had ironed something. "You didn't say 25 people." I said it was my grandmother's birthday. 25 people is what that means, statistically, in this family. He killed the engine and turned to face me, and for one unguarded second he looked genuinely nervous, which was new. Jake did not get nervous, Jake got late, those were his two settings. "Look. I need this to go well. Not for me. For my grandmother. She's had a rough year, and I want her birthday to be good, and if that means she gets to believe I'm not going to die alone surrounded by takeout containers, I want to give her that, for one night." This, I will admit, is the exact moment the con stopped being about $400 and started being about something I actually cared about, which is a very inconvenient thing to have happen to a person seconds before they walk into a house full of strangers who are about to interrogate them. "Okay," I said. "One rule. If anyone asks a question you haven't briefed me on, I'm making it up, and you're not allowed to correct me in front of anyone, no matter how insane it gets." Jake looked at me the way you look at someone right before you realize you've made a mistake. "Deal," he said, because he, too, is not a complicated person, and neither of us understood yet how insane it was about to get. The front door opened onto a wall of noise, a dozen conversations happening at once, someone's toddler shrieking with either joy or homicidal rage, indistinguishable, and a golden retriever attempting to introduce itself to every single person in the house simultaneously, achieving roughly 40% success. "Jacob." A woman appeared out of the noise like she'd been fired from a cannon, arms already open, and enveloped Jake before either of us could brace for it. This, based on the aggressive hugging and the fact that she had Jake's exact nose, I correctly identified as his mother. "You made it, oh, and you brought," she pulled back, and her eyes landed on me with the specific, terrifying focus of a woman who had clearly been briefed by someone that her son might be bringing a person. "Mom," Jake said, "this is Maddie." "Maddie." She said my name like she was trying it on. "Maddie, Maddie, Maddie. Come here." And I, too, was hugged, with a force that suggested she had been storing up hugs specifically for this occasion. Over her shoulder, I caught Jake's eye. He gave me the smallest possible nod, the nod that meant "you're doing fine, don't panic," which is a very different message from "this is going well," and I clocked the distinction immediately. "We've heard so little about you," his mother said, releasing me, which was somehow more alarming than the hug. "Jacob is a vault. An absolute vault. 8 months and he tells us nothing." "He's private," I said, which had the enormous advantage of being true regardless of which universe we were in. "He gets that from his father." She said this with the weary affection of a woman who had spent 30 years married to a vault and had made her peace with it. Come in, everyone's dying to meet you, Priya." "Priya. Come meet Jacob's Maddie." "Jacob's Maddie." I filed that away as the moment I stopped being a person and became a possessive noun, and I want to be clear that I felt the ground shift slightly under the whole enterprise right then, the way you feel a plane hit turbulence before the seatbelt light comes on. The next 40 minutes were a receiving line of relatives, and I want to take a moment to catalog them, because every single one of them would matter later, and I did not, at the time, understand that I was doing reconnaissance. There was Priya, Jake's aunt, who ran a hand over my shoulder like she was checking the quality of a coat and pronounced, "Good posture." "I like her," to nobody in particular, as though I were a horse. There was Priya's new husband, Desmond, who shook my hand with both of his and told me, unprompted, that he'd once lost $40,000 on a horse named Reckless Abandon and considered it the best money I ever spent. Character building, a philosophy I chose not to examine too closely. There was Jake's father, who did in fact confirm the vault theory by saying exactly 4 words to me across the entire evening, 2 of which were nice and coat. There was a swarm of cousins whose names blurred together into a general impression of good teeth and expensive haircuts, except for one, who stood slightly apart from the rest with the stillness of a person taking notes at their own family reunion. She introduced herself as Renata, and something about the way she said it, flat, assessing, her eyes doing a full pass over me before she extended her hand, made me feel, for one full second, like I'd walked into a job interview I hadn't studied for. "You're the one from the pool party," Renata said. "That's me. I run De La Croix Consumer Goods," she said, which meant nothing to me at the time and would mean quite a lot by the end of the night. "Jake talks about you like you hung the moon. It's unlike him. He usually talks about people like they're a mild inconvenience he's fond of." She said this without a trace of a smile, which somehow made it funnier. I look forward to finding out why. There was also Uncle Fitz, who cornered me by the coat closet to explain, at length and entirely unprompted, why the golden retriever was technically an executive vice president of morale and had his own business card, which he produced from his wallet to prove it. There was Cousin Delphine, 7 years old, who evaluated me with the merciless clarity only children possess and announced, "You have a mean laugh, I like it," before running off to do something involving the dog and a tablecloth that I chose not to investigate. And there was a man in a gray suit standing near the study door who did not introduce himself at all, who spoke to no one, who checked his phone exactly 4 times in 10 minutes with the specific tension of a person waiting for a call he didn't want to receive, and whom I clocked, filed away, and promptly forgot about, the way you forget a strange car parked on your street, right up until the moment it turns out to matter. Later, much later, after everything, I would learn his name was Grierson, that he was not family at all but the outside negotiator on a stalled acquisition worth more than I would earn in a decade, and that Renata had invited him to a family birthday dinner specifically because she'd run out of professional settings in which to read him, and wanted to see how a cornered animal behaved in the wild. At the time, though, he was just a nervous man in a gray suit, and I had bigger, more immediate problems bearing down on me in the shape of a woman in violet. And then, cutting through the crowd like a small, determined ship, came Grandmother de la Croix herself, Nana Elvira, as I would learn everyone called her, though nothing about the woman suggested Nana so much as retired intelligence officer. She was perhaps 5 feet tall, dressed head to toe in violet, and she crossed the room directly to me, bypassing her own grandson entirely, and took both my hands in hers with a grip that could have opened a jar. "So," she said, "you are the girlfriend." "I am." She studied me for what felt like a geological age. Somewhere behind her, Jake mouthed "I'm sorry" at me, which was not comforting. 8 months, Nana Elvira said finally, "and he has told me nothing about you." "Do you know what that means?" "That he's private?" I offered, going back to the well. "It means," she said, ignoring this entirely and patting my hand, "that he is serious about you. My grandson does not hide the people he does not care about. He announces them and forgets them within a season. He has kept a secret." Her eyes gleamed with something that I would later recognize, far too late, as the specific glee of a woman assembling a plan. "Come. Sit next to me at dinner. We will get to know each other." She swept off toward the dining room, and I turned to Jake with what I can only describe as the facial expression of a woman watching a landslide begin several hundred feet above her house. "She thinks it means something," I hissed. "You said one dinner. You said nobody asks why you're single. This is the opposite of that." "I didn't think she's never this fast," Jake said, and for the first time all evening, he looked genuinely rattled. Usually it takes her a full course to start planning things. Planning what things? I don't know. Weddings. Christenings. She once planned my cousin Marcus's entire honeymoon before he'd asked his girlfriend out on a second date. And they'd been married for 6 years and they named their dog after her, so, statistically, her instincts are good, which is somehow worse. Somewhere in the house, a bell rang, summoning everyone to the table, and I felt the specific vertigo of a person who has agreed to a $400 lie and is now watching it grow teeth. Dinner was served in a room with a table long enough to require its own weather system, laden with more silverware than I personally owned, and I was seated, as promised, directly to Nana Elvira's left, with Jake diagonally across from me, close enough to make eye contact and far enough to be useless in an emergency. The interrogation began somewhere around the soup course. So, Nana Elvira said, dabbing her mouth with a napkin the size of a pillowcase, tell me. How did my grandson propose the relationship? Was it romantic? He has no imagination, so I assume not. He asked me to be his girlfriend over pad thai, I said, sticking as close to the literal truth as physically possible, which turned out to be an excellent policy, on a Tuesday, at 9 o'clock at night, with absolutely no warning. This got a genuine laugh from 3 different relatives, and Jake, across the table, shot me a look that said too close to the truth, to which I responded with a look that said I have exactly 2 facts and I am rationing them. And you said yes to a man who cannot plan a proposal to save his life, Nana Elvira said. Bold. I like bold. She turned to the table at large. She said yes over noodles. On a Tuesday. Very on brand, said Renata dryly, from 3 seats down, not looking up from her plate, and I noticed, filed it away, the way you file away a strange noise in an old house, that she was watching me with more attention than the conversation warranted. The soup gave way to a salad course, which gave way to a main course involving a roast the size of a household appliance, and through all of it, Nana Elvira mined me for information with the patient, relentless technique of a woman who had clearly gotten confessions out of harder targets than me. Where did I grow up? What did I do for work? Marketing, I said. True. Did I want children? We haven't discussed it, I said, mildly strangled. Was I good to her grandson? Did I make him laugh? Did I feed him vegetables? Because God knew the boy survived on cereal and spite. What's your favorite thing about him? She asked, and I noticed the entire table had gone slightly quiet to listen, the way a restaurant goes quiet for a proposal. He remembers things nobody else bothers to remember, I said, and this one wasn't improvised at all. It came out before I decided to say it, true in a way that surprised me a little. He'll bring you a coffee exactly the way you like it without asking, because he clocked it once, months ago, and just kept it filed away. It's a small thing. It's not a small thing. Nana Elvira looked, briefly, like she might cry, which was alarming, and Jake, across the table, looked at his plate very hard, which was also alarming, and I made a mental note to be more careful about which truths I let slip out disguised as improvisation, because apparently my mouth did not distinguish between the two the way my brain wanted it to. I answered everything else with the truth wherever the truth was available and improvised the rest with the confidence of a woman with nothing left to lose, and somewhere around the second glass of wine, I noticed I was actually enjoying myself, in the terrifying, high-wire way you enjoy a roller coaster you didn't consent to ride. Across the room, near the study door, the man in the gray suit checked his phone a 5th time and stepped out into the hallway, and I watched Renata's eyes track him the entire way, sharp and unreadable, before she turned back to her plate as though nothing had happened at all. I didn't know, then, That I was watching the opening move of an entirely different negotiation happening quietly underneath the one about my fake relationship. I just thought it was strange that a grown man kept leaving his own family's birthday dinner to stand alone in a hallway, and filed it, the way you file most strange things at a party, under not my problem. It was Jake's father, 4 words all night Jake's father, who finally leaned over during a lull and said, "Lo, just to me, she's already picked the venue." I set down my fork. "I'm sorry, what?" "The venue. For the wedding. She picked it 11 minutes ago, while you were talking about your job." I heard her tell Priya. He said this the way you'd warn someone about a wasp's nest, calmly, factually, from a safe distance. "It's a lovely venue. Overlooks a lake. You'll like it." "There is no wedding," I said, too fast, and he simply smiled at me, sadly, like a man who had once said the exact same sentence and lost. By dessert, a cake the size of a manhole cover, 25 candles arranged in a spiral that looked less like decoration and more like a targeting system, Nana Elvira rose from her seat with the unhurried confidence of a woman about to deliver a verdict. "I want to say something," she announced, and the table, trained by decades of experience, fell instantly silent. Jake went pale in a way I had genuinely never seen him go pale, not during finals, not during the incident with the landlord's car, not once in 4 years of friendship, and I understood, with the sudden clarity of a woman standing on train tracks, that we were about to hear something I could not undo with improvisation. 75 years, Nana Elvira began, is a long time to wait for good news. I have had good news before. Grandchildren, weddings, one very expensive divorce that I will not discuss. A ripple of laughter, quickly suppressed. But tonight, I watched my grandson bring a woman to this table who makes him laugh, actually laugh, not the polite laugh, the real one, the one he does with his whole stupid face, and I watched her hold her own against this entire family, which most people cannot do sober. More laughter, this time including Renata, who allowed herself the smallest smile. "So, as my birthday gift to myself, I am announcing that Jacob and Madeline will be married in June, at the Larkspur House on the lake, and I have already spoken to the caterer, so it is, functionally, decided." There was applause. There was actual, sustained applause, from 25 people, for a wedding date that had been invented, unilaterally, by a 75-year-old woman, based on 8 months of a relationship that had existed for exactly 90 minutes. I did not applaud. I sat very still, holding a fork with a piece of cake balanced on it, and I looked at Jake, and Jake looked at me, and for one long, suspended second, neither of us said anything at all, because there was, genuinely, nothing in either of our vocabularies built for this specific emergency. And that would have been the crisis of the evening, an entirely survivable, if enormous, problem, if the front door hadn't opened at that exact moment, letting in a gust of cold air and a woman in a red coat who stood in the doorway of the dining room with the specific, wounded fury of someone who has just heard the last sentence of a wedding announcement through a closed door. "Married," she said. "You're getting married?" Every head at the table turned. Jake's face, already pale, went the color of the tablecloth. "Bianca," he said. I would like the record to show that I had, at this point, for $100 riding on the outcome of the evening, a fake fiancé, a fake wedding date, and now a very real, very furious woman named Bianca standing in the doorway with the specific energy of a person who had, until roughly 90 seconds ago, believed she still had a shot. "You didn't tell me you were seeing someone," Bianca said, her voice climbing. "You didn't tell anyone you were seeing someone, and now there's a wedding? Bianca, what are you doing here? Your mother invited me." "For the birthday." "She always invites me, I thought we were still," her eyes landed on me, and I watched, in real time, an entire relationship's worth of grief and fury reroute itself directly at my face. "Who is she?" "I'm Maddie," I said, because it seemed important, in the moment, to at least be correctly identified before things escalated further. "Maddie." Bianca said my name the exact same way Jake's mother had, hours earlier, except stripped of any warmth whatsoever, like she was reading it off a subpoena. "You've been together 8 months and I'm hearing about it tonight, in front of everyone, at a wedding announcement. Nobody's hearing about anything tonight that they haven't already heard about for 8 months, Jake said, standing now, hands out in the universal gesture of a man trying to lower the temperature of a room that had already caught fire. "Bianca, we broke up over a year ago. You know this. You're engaged to someone else." "I am not engaged," Bianca said, and then, immediately, with the timing of a woman who had clearly been saving this line for a bigger audience than she currently had, she burst into tears. Real tears. Loud ones. The kind that come with sound effects. Nana Elvira, still standing at the head of the table, watched this unfold with the calm, evaluating expression of a woman scoring an Olympic event. Priya had both hands pressed to her mouth. Somewhere down the table, one of the good teeth cousins was filming on his phone, which I noted with the distant, professional interest of a woman who understood that this footage would outlive all of us. "I called off the engagement," Bianca said, through tears, to the entire assembled family, "because I heard you'd asked about me, at Marcus's thing, and I thought that meant, and now you're marrying someone I've never even heard of." "I didn't ask about you at Marcus's thing," Jake said, with the flat, exhausted honesty of a man who has officially run out of diplomatic options. "I asked if you were there because I was trying to time my exit so we wouldn't have to talk." "That's not the same thing." This did not help. "Then why does your mother still text me?" Bianca demanded, and I watched Jake's mother, across the table, go very interested in her wine glass. "Why did I get a birthday card from her in March?" "People don't send birthday cards to someone they've written off, Jake. That's not how endings work." "My mother sends birthday cards to the mail carrier, Bianca. It's not a signal. It's a hobby." It felt like a signal. "Everything feels like a signal to you. That was kind of the whole problem. Do not start listing my problems in front of your entire." She stopped, pressed the heel of her hand against one eye, and took a breath that shuddered its way out. When she spoke again, quieter, the fury had drained into something more tired and more honest. "I just thought there'd be more time. Before you moved on. I thought I'd get a warning." 25 people sat in absolute silence, watching a breakup get relitigated over cake, and I understood, with the sudden, sinking clarity of a woman who has volunteered for exactly none of this, that somebody was going to have to say something, and that somebody was apparently going to be me, because Jake had the specific, frozen look of a man who had already said everything he had and was now simply waiting to be told what happened next. I want to be very clear that at no point in the $400 of preparation I had received for this evening was I briefed on an ex-fiancée, a broken engagement, or the correct etiquette for being wept at by a stranger over a wedding I was not actually part of, and I made the split-second decision, standing there with cake still on my fork, to do the only thing that felt like it might actually help, which was to put the fork down, walk around the table, and hand Bianca a napkin. "Hey," I said, quiet, just to her, while the rest of the table watched like it was theater, because it was. "I know this looks insane. It is insane. My advice, for what it's worth, from a total stranger, is that whatever you two had, it's not something you get back by crying in front of his whole family at his grandmother's birthday. That's not a strategy. That's just a bad night." Bianca stared at me, mascara sliding, breath hitching, and something in her face shifted, not gratitude, exactly, more like the specific relief of being told the truth by someone with no stake in flattering her. "I know," she said finally, miserable. "I know it's a bad night. I panicked. I heard wedding and I panicked." "Understandable," I said. "Weddings do that. Even fake ones." I did not mean to say the last two words out loud. They arrived in the air before I could stop them, small and catastrophic, and I watched them land, one by one, on every face at the table. "Fake?" Nana Elvira said. The word hit the room like a dropped plate. 25 people, all at once, stopped pretending to be doing anything other than listening. I looked at Jake. Jake looked at me. Somewhere in the 4 seconds of silence that followed, I did the math on my $400, my rent, and my dignity, and concluded that all three were now, simultaneously, unrecoverable, so I might as well be honest. "Not fake," I said, slowly, choosing the words the way you choose footholds on a cliff. "Fake wedding. Very real friendship. Jake asked me to come tonight as his girlfriend because his mother was sending him dating profiles like he was a catalog item, and he wanted one night where his grandmother didn't have to worry about him." That part was real. The part where an entire wedding got planned around a relationship that started 90 minutes ago, that part happened to both of us at the same speed, Nana. I promise you, nobody here is more surprised by the venue than I am. There was a silence long enough that I could hear the dog's tags jingling somewhere in the kitchen. Then Nana Elvira laughed. It started small, a huff through the nose, and then it built, genuinely, into a full, delighted, table-shaking laugh, the laugh of a woman who has just been told the punchline to a joke she'd accidentally been telling all night. 90 minutes, she wheezed, wiping her eyes, which were, I noted, dry compared to Bianca's. Jacob, you hired a fake girlfriend, and she is better at this family than you are." To be fair, I said, the bar was extremely low. More laughter, real laughter now, rolling down the table, and I watched 25 people recalibrate an entire evening's worth of tension into something that was, somehow, funnier for having been fake. Even Bianca, wiping her face with my napkin, let out a wet, reluctant laugh. Even Jake's father contributed a fifth word to his running total, unbelievable, delivered with something that might have been pride. Jake sat back down slowly, like a man testing whether the floor was still there. "So we're not doing the wedding," he said, to his grandmother, carefully. "Obviously we are not doing the wedding, you enormous idiot, she is not your girlfriend." Nana Elvira waved this away like a fly. "But I will say this." She turned to me, and her eyes, sharp as they'd been all night, went sharper still, appraising, delighted, entirely unbothered by having been played. "You handled an interrogation, a wedding announcement, and a crying ex-fiancée in the space of one dinner, without once breaking. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, a very useful skill." She sat back down, satisfied, and reached for her cake as though the matter were closed. "Jacob, you should keep her around. Not as a wife. As a consultant." I laughed, because it seemed like the only sane response, and did not yet understand that Nana Elvira did not, generally, make suggestions she considered optional. The rest of dinner reassembled itself with the specific speed of a family that had clearly weathered stranger nights than this one. Bianca, having cried herself out, was folded gently back into the group by Priya, who steered her toward a conversation about someone's new kitchen renovation with the practiced ease of a woman performing triage. Jake sat next to me, shell-shocked, refilling his wine glass with the deliberate care of a man who had just watched his cover story detonate and was choosing, wisely, not to make any more decisions that night. You told them, he said, low, under the noise of the table resuming its normal chaos. I said one word too many. In my defense, your ex was crying on me and I panicked. You just told my entire family. At my grandmother's birthday, I told them the truth, which, in retrospect, worked out significantly better than the lie, so I'm going to go ahead and call that a win. I picked my fork back up. For the record, I still expect the $400. Possibly a bonus, at this point, given the acting required. You told the truth in the middle of a wedding announcement. You hired me for one dinner and somehow ended up with a wedding date, a fake fiancé, a crying ex, and a standing ovation from your grandmother. I feel like we both improvised tonight, Jake. He laughed, the real one, the whole-face one his mother had mentioned, and something about it made me feel, for the first time all night, like maybe the evening hadn't actually been a disaster so much as a very expensive, very loud comedy that we happened to be standing inside of. It was around then that Renata slid into the empty seat beside me, Jake's father having wandered off to refill something, and set down a fresh glass of wine in front of me without being asked, the way you'd hand a tool to someone you'd already decided was competent. That was the most efficient de-escalation I've ever watched, she said, without preamble. The napkin, the honesty, the timing. You didn't flinch once. Not with my grandmother, not with the ex, not even when the whole table turned on you. I panicked internally the entire time, I said. It just doesn't show on my face. It's a curse, actually. I've been told it's very off-putting in job interviews. It's not off-putting. It's the most useful skill in a boardroom. She studied me the way she had at the door, that same flat assessing look, except now it had settled into something closer to a decision already made. I run our consumer goods division. We're 2 weeks from closing an acquisition that's currently stalled because the other side's lead negotiator has the emotional temperature of a smoke detector and my team keeps setting him off. I need someone who can walk into a room where everyone is one sentence from combusting and talk them back down without breaking a sweat. I watched you do that, tonight, for free, at a dinner party, wearing a coat my aunt complimented twice. I thought, suddenly, of the man in the gray suit, the phone checks, the hallway, Renata's eyes tracking him like a hawk pretending to look at a mouse. The man by the study, I said. Gray suit. He's not family, is he? Something flickered across Renata's face, not surprise, exactly, more like the small satisfaction of watching a hypothesis confirm itself. No, she said. He's not family. He's Grierson. He's the reason I invited myself to my own grandmother's birthday early and spent the whole appetizer course watching a stranger instead of eating. I wanted to see how he behaved somewhere he couldn't prepare for. Somewhere with children and a dog and absolutely no leverage. She smiled, thin and satisfied. He left the room 4 times in 1 hour. That tells me more than 4 hours of formal negotiation has. You, on the other hand, got proposed to, wept on, and exposed as a fraud, and you never once left the table. That's either a testament to my composure or a sign I have nowhere else to go. With you, I suspect it's both, which is exactly why I want you in the room Thursday. She let that sit for a second, then added, almost as an afterthought, I don't tell people this. But I've had 3 assistants and 2 junior associates cry in front of Grierson this quarter. You made his ex-fiancée adjacent equivalent laugh through her own mascara. I would very much like to see what you do to a man who's merely stubborn. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a job, Renata said, and named a figure that was, without exaggeration, more than double what I currently made in marketing, plus something she called deal bonuses that I did not yet understand but immediately liked the sound of. Effective whenever you're ready. Today, ideally, because the negotiator flies out Thursday and I would like you in the room before he does. I looked at Jake. Jake, who had spent the last 4 years watching me complain about my job with the specific, weary loyalty of a best friend who has heard the same complaint 400 times and still listens, looked back at me with an expression that was equal parts "this is insane" and "take it, obviously, take it right now." "I'd need to think about it," I said to Renata, which was true, and also the first fully honest thing I'd said all night that didn't require a fork or a napkin as a delivery mechanism. "Think fast," Renata said, standing, smoothing her jacket. "I don't extend the offer twice. It's not personal. It's just efficient." She paused at the edge of the table, and for the first time all evening, something like warmth cracked through the flat assessment in her face. "For what it's worth, fake or not, that was the best fake relationship I've ever watched. You should both consider a career in theater. Separately. I don't think either of you could survive a stage together without someone crying." She left. Bianca, 3 seats down, laughed despite herself and did not appear to take offense, which I chose to interpret as a sign that the worst of the evening was, genuinely, behind us. We didn't leave until nearly midnight. Nana Elvira hugged me at the door with the same jar-opening grip from hours earlier, and this time whispered, conspiratorially, the job offer. "Take it." Renata does not offer things twice, and she is never wrong about people, which struck me as an extremely well-informed thing for a 75-year-old woman in Violet to know about her granddaughter's hiring habits, until I remembered that this entire family appeared to run on a shared intelligence network so efficient it made actual intelligence agencies look disorganized. Bianca, of all people, hugged me too, on her way out to a rideshare she'd called sometime during dessert, and murmured, "You're better at this family than I ever was," and I dated him for 3 years, which I chose to take as a compliment rather than examine too closely for hidden knives. Uncle Fitz shook my hand a second time and slipped me the Golden Retriever's business card in case you ever need a reference, and Delphine, the 7-year-old, informed me solemnly at the door that she'd decided I could come to her birthday too, an honor apparently not extended lightly, judging by the look of surprise on her mother's face. $400, Jake said, in the car, handing me an envelope before we'd even left the driveway, plus, I feel like, hazard pay. Hazard pay for what, specifically? For getting proposed to by my grandmother on my behalf, cried on by my ex, and headhunted by my cousin, all before dessert was finished. I think that's worth at least another 100. You think correctly. I took the envelope, and then, because the night had apparently rewired something in my judgment, added, "Also I'm taking the job." Jake didn't take his eyes off the road, but I saw the corner of his mouth go up. "Yeah? Double the salary, Jake." I would take that job if the interview had involved actual gunfire. To be fair, it kind of did. Emotionally. Emotional gunfire. Exactly. I leaned my head back against the seat, and for a while we just drove, the radio low, the envelope sitting between us on the console like a small, incriminating piece of evidence. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said eventually, eyes on the road. "The thing you said about the coffee. Was that improvised, or?" "It was improvised," I said, too quickly, and then, because lying to Jake had never once in 4 years worked out for me, added, "mostly." "It's true, though. You do that. You've always done that." I just wasn't planning on saying it out loud to a room full of people who were going to cry about it. My grandmother wasn't crying. Your grandmother was one syllable away from crying, Jake. I was sitting right next to her. I could see the whole operation building. He was quiet for a moment, and in the dashboard light I could see him working up to something, the same rehearsing a live face from his kitchen a week earlier, except this time I had the distinct sense that whatever came out wasn't going to be a lie at all. "For what it's worth," he said finally, "you were the best fake girlfriend I've ever had. Statistically also the only one, but still. Best. High bar. Lowest possible bar. You cleared it by a mile anyway." I let that sit for a second longer than it probably needed to, watching the dark trees slide past the window, replaying the whole absurd night, the interrogation, the venue, the wedding date, Bianca in the doorway, the word fake leaving my mouth like a grenade with the pin already pulled, Nana Elvira's laugh shaking the whole table, Renata's flat, assessing eyes deciding my next 5 years of employment in under 90 seconds. "Your family is unbelievable, by the way. I mean that as a professional compliment. I've never seen an entire dinner party pivot that fast. They liked you. They hired me and nearly married me in the same evening. That's not liking someone, that's a hostile takeover with dessert." Jake laughed again, and I realized, somewhere on the dark road back toward the city, that I had walked into that house expecting to earn $400 for an easy lie, and had walked out with $401, a job that would change my entire financial situation, and the very strong suspicion that no future job interview, ever, for the rest of my life, was going to feel remotely as stressful as surviving dessert with the Delacroix. "So," Jake said, after a while, glancing over at a red light. "Same time next year? My mom's turning 60 in October." "Absolutely not. I'll pay you $600. Jake. $800, and I'll tell my grandmother it's a long engagement." "If you tell your grandmother anything about a long engagement, I will personally call Renata and tell her you're the reason her acquisition negotiator has the emotional temperature of a smoke detector." "That's fair," Jake said, and turned the radio up, and somewhere behind us, in a house full of relatives who were, even now, probably still discussing the evening over the last of the cake, 25 people were retelling a story about a wedding that never happened, a fiancé who was never real, and a fake girlfriend who had, against every reasonable expectation, turned out to be the best thing that happened to their family in years. I decided, watching the city lights come up ahead of us, that I could live with that ending. The negotiator, as it turned out, did have the emotional temperature of a smoke detector, a man named Grierson who communicated primarily in silences and had, according to Renata, made 2 junior associates cry in as many weeks. I walked into the conference room on my 3rd day of employment, coffee in hand, no training beyond "be exactly like you were at that dinner," and watched him spend the first 4 minutes of the meeting refusing to make eye contact with anyone at the table. "Mr. Grierson," I said, sliding into the seat across from him, the same voice I'd used on Bianca in a stranger's dining room, "I know this looks insane. It probably is insane. But I promise you, whatever you're bracing for in this room, it's not going to get worse by talking about it like a person instead of a lawsuit." He looked up. Something in his face did the same small shift Bianca's had, not quite gratitude, but the relief of being spoken to honestly by someone with no interest in flattering him. "You're new," he said. 3 days. Your predecessor lasted 6. He said it like a warning and a dare, both at once. "My predecessor didn't survive a family dinner where a woman got unengaged over cake, Mr. Grierson. I did. I think I've got a little more runway in me than 6 days." That got something close to a laugh out of him, small, dry, surprised out of his own chest before he could stop it, and across the table, Renata, who had been pretending to review a folder, did not look up, but I saw the corner of her mouth move, the same small satisfaction from the doorway a week earlier, the look of a woman watching a bet pay off exactly on schedule. "How did you get this job?" I thought about the wedding date, the crying ex, the fork with the cake still balanced on it, the word fake landing on the table like a dropped plate, and Nana Elvira's laugh shaking the whole room. "It's a long story," I said. "Ask me over dinner sometime. I'm very good at those." The deal closed the following Tuesday, 4 days ahead of schedule, and Renata sent me a bonus, a bottle of wine slightly better than the one I'd been drinking to forget my rent increase, and a text that read, simply, "Told you I'm never wrong about people. Nana says hello. She's already looking at venues for the 60-year-old birthday. I'd start rehearsing your excuses now." I did not start rehearsing my excuses. I had a strong suspicion I was going to need them, sometime around October, and an equally strong suspicion that when the moment came, I was going to say yes anyway, for the money, obviously, but mostly, if I was honest, because some families are worth pretending for, even when the pretending stops being the point somewhere around dessert. If there's one thing I learned from the single most chaotic dinner of my life, it's that the truth, said at exactly the wrong moment, tends to land better than any lie you rehearsed in the car. I walked in for $400 and walked out with a new job, a family that adopted me by accident, and a standing invitation to a 7-year-old's birthday party I fully intend to attend. If you enjoyed this one, stick around. Apparently there's a 60-year-old's birthday coming up in October, and something tells me it won't be quiet either. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, original storytelling, and let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.